Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't just the bodybuilder who conquered Hollywood. Behind the muscles, one-liners, and sunglasses, he left behind secrets, hidden in plain sight, that most fans never noticed. From unexpected movie details to life choices coded into his roles. Here are 15 secrets Arnold has been hiding all along. When Arnold Schwarzenegger first broke into Hollywood, everyone thought his thick Austrian accent was going to end his career before it even started. Executives called it distracting, even laughable. His surname? Too long, too foreign, they said. Some even suggested that he should change it. But Arnold didn't bend. Instead, he turned what Hollywood saw as a weakness into one of his greatest strengths. Directors quickly realized they could use the accent. In The Terminator, James Cameron gave Arnold minimal dialogue on purpose, because every word sounded colder, more mechanical, more alien. Suddenly, the accent wasn't a flaw. It was the character. Audiences didn't hear an immigrant struggling with English. They heard a machine sent from the future. This became a lifelong strategy. Roles like Conan, Terminator, and even lines in Predator were crafted around his unique way of speaking. What others tried to erase became his signature. That's why, to this day, his voice is instantly recognizable, even in a single word like chopper. When Arnold Schwarzenegger landed the role of Conan the Barbarian in 1982, the studio knew he had the muscles, but could he move like a warrior? Director John Milius wasn't interested in just showing a bodybuilder holding a sword. He wanted authenticity. So Arnold trained for months under Kiyoshi Yamazaki, a Japanese martial arts master. Every swing, every stance, every block had to look like something that belonged to a hardened barbarian warrior, not a gym rat flexing on screen. Arnold would spend hours learning how to handle the massive broadsword until it felt like an extension of his own arm. The training was so intense and detailed that Arnold later said it completely reshaped the way he carried himself, not just in Conan, but in every movie that followed. You can see it in how he walks into battle, how he squares his shoulders, even in Terminator when he handles weapons with cold precision. And here's the kicker. The Conan sword wasn't just a prop. Arnold became so attached to it that he kept it for decades. In fact, that very sword would later make an appearance in his office, mounted behind his desk, almost like a reminder of the role that proved he could be more than a bodybuilder. He could be a movie star. In The Terminator, 1984, director James Cameron wanted the T-800 to feel less like a man and more like an unstoppable machine. Arnold took that direction literally. He trained himself to fire weapons without blinking, something that goes completely against human reflexes. Think about it. Real machine gun fire inches from his face, loud blanks going off, and yet his eyes stay locked on target. That tiny detail gave the cyborg an eerie, almost inhuman presence. It's the kind of thing you don't consciously notice, but your brain registers it, making the T-800 feel cold, robotic, and terrifying. Fans only discovered years later that Arnold had practiced this for weeks, building it into muscle memory. And it worked. To this day, people still point out that the Terminator's stare looks different from every other action hero. One of the most iconic lines in film history almost didn't sound the way we know it today. In James Cameron's original script for The Terminator 1984, the line was written as, "I will be back." Arnold read it and felt something was off. He argued with Cameron, saying that grammatically it sounded stiff and that "I will" flowed better in his accent, but Cameron was firm. He believed "I'll be back" was punchier, more natural, and carried more impact. Arnold reluctantly agreed, and the rest is history. That single phrase delivered in his distinct accent became bigger than the movie itself. It transformed into a pop culture phenomenon, quoted by presidents, comedians, even kids who had never seen the film. When Arnold signed on for Predator, 1987, he knew it wasn't going to be just another action flick. The film was set in the unforgiving jungles of Mexico, and the camera would be inches away from his body during the most intense scenes. Every detail mattered. To stay as lean and defined as possible, Arnold came up with an extreme plan. He trained hard during the day, ate very little at night, and demanded that his most physical scenes be shot in freezing nighttime conditions. Imagine sweating through hours of action while the temperature drops close to 40 degrees. Most actors would have begged for heaters. Arnold refused. The cast and crew couldn't believe it. Carl Weathers joked that Arnold was secretly part machine because while others were shivering under blankets between takes, Arnold was pumping iron, covered in mud, and ready for another scene. What looked effortless on screen was actually a brutal test of endurance. But that's exactly why Dutch Arnold's character looked so raw, primal, and convincing. The pain was real. Back in 1987, Arnold starred in The Running Man, a dystopian action film where his character Ben Richards takes on a corrupt government system broadcast on live TV. At the time, it felt like just another brutal sci-fi adventure. Nobody knew it was quietly planting seeds of something bigger. Arnold's role wasn't just about muscles or one-liners. It was about rebellion, justice, and giving power back to the people. Watching him take down a rigged system in front of millions on screen feels almost prophetic now. Because less than 2 decades later, Arnold would step off the movie set and onto the political stage, running for governor of California. Fans who revisit The Running Man today can't help but draw the connection. The action hero who fought corruption on camera became the real man who promised to terminate politics as usual in Sacramento. In the 80s and 90s, action cinema had 2 kings, and they weren't exactly friends. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone were locked in one of Hollywood's strangest rivalries, in Last Action. Hero 1993, Arnold walks up past a movie poster of a Terminator 2, but instead of him, it's Stallone holding the shotgun, a blink and you miss it jab that had fans laughing in theaters. Stallone fired back too. In Demolition Man, 1993, his character wakes up in the future only to discover that Arnold had become president of the United States. At the time, it was a joke. Years later, when Arnold actually became governor of California, it felt like Hollywood predicting the future. The rivalry even fueled their careers. Each one tried to outdo the other with bigger explosions, crazier stunts, and more iconic one-liners. But what started as competition slowly turned into respect. By the 2000s, the 2 legends teamed up, first with Planet Hollywood, and later on screen in the Expendables franchise, turning their feud into one of cinema's greatest collaborations. When most action stars step into a cockpit, the camera cuts, and a stunt double takes over. Not Arnold. For True Lies, 1994, James Cameron wanted every scene to feel authentic, especially the climactic sequence with helicopters weaving through Miami at night. Arnold took that as a personal challenge. Instead of faking it, he trained with actual military pilots. He learned the basics of controls, positioning, and the discipline required to look convincing on screen. Co-stars later admitted that Arnold would spend hours practicing with the flight crew, absorbing details most actors would leave to stunt coordinators. By the time the cameras rolled, Arnold wasn't just acting like he was flying. He looked like he belonged there. His hand movements, posture, and calm under pressure gave the action sequence a realism that fans still talk about today. James Cameron later said that Arnold's commitment to authenticity pushed everyone else to raise their game, and it's this exact mentality, the refusal to cut corners, that turned a simple spy thriller into one of the most spectacular action films of the 90s. Why fake it when you can actually do it? By 1990, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the undisputed king of muscle-bound action heroes. Explosions, shootouts, and one-liners were his kingdom. So when he signed on to Kindergarten Cop, Hollywood insiders were baffled. Why would the Terminator trade machine guns for juice boxes? But Arnold knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to prove that toughness wasn't just about fists, it was about patience, humor, and heart. On set, Arnold embraced the chaos of working with dozens of children. Behind the scenes, crew members admitted he refused to let a double handle the classroom chaos. Instead, he personally wrangled the kids, learning their names, joking with them, even improvising lines to keep the energy real. The gamble worked. Audiences who came expecting pure slapstick walked away surprised at how natural Arnold was in a comedic, family-friendly role. He wasn't just parodying himself, he was expanding his brand. For the first time, parents saw Arnold as approachable, kids saw him as funny, and studios realized he could carry films outside of action. Even today, Kindergarten Cop stands out because it humanized the world's biggest action star. It showed that the same man who battled predators and Terminators could also lose his cool to a classroom of screaming 6-year-olds and still win the audience's heart. Arnold may have become a Hollywood megastar, but he never forgot where he came from, the bodybuilding stage. If you look closely, he left little nods to that world sprinkled across his films, like hidden winks to the fans who knew him long before he was the Terminator. In Junior 1994, Arnold jokes about diet, metabolism, and protein, slipping gym culture into a movie about science and pregnancy. Even in Last Action Hero 1993, Arnold managed to throw in flexes, literally, that call back to his fitness origins. These moments weren't accidents. Arnold worked with directors and writers to sneak in these touches because he understood branding before Hollywood even had a word for it. He wasn't just a movie star. He was a walking reminder of discipline, training, and reinvention. Fans in the 80s and 90s picked up on these nods, but In hindsight, they read like a roadmap. No matter how far he went in acting, politics, or business, fitness was always his foundation. It's part of why his films feel so uniquely Arnold. He didn't erase his past. He embedded it into every role, even the comedic ones. His movies weren't just entertainment. They were a constant reminder of the culture he built around strength and self-transformation. Most people know Arnold for the one-liners and the muscles. But behind the scenes, he was playing a whole different game. While other stars were cashing in flat paychecks, Arnold was quietly negotiating deals that would make Wall Street jealous. Take Twins, 1988. Universal didn't think the movie would make much money, so they offered Arnold, Danny DeVito, and director Ivan Reitman a risky deal. No upfront salary, just a cut of the profits. Everyone thought they were crazy for agreeing. The result? The film made over $215 million worldwide on a budget of just $18 million. Arnold's gamble turned into a jackpot, reportedly earning him more than any of his action blockbusters. And this wasn't a one-off. Arnold consistently pushed for back-end points, merchandising deals, and profit participation in ways that most actors at the time weren't bold enough to demand. He treated Hollywood like a chessboard, leveraging his brand power at the box office into financial security that lasted well beyond his acting peak. Critics often talk about his physique or accent as his strengths, but in reality, his sharpest weapon was business instinct. He knew movies were temporary, but ownership, that was forever. By the 90s, Arnold wasn't just an action star. He was a mogul, paving the way for today's actors who chase producer credits and profit shares. In fact, some industry insiders still say his Twins deal is one of the smartest contracts in Hollywood history. While his rivals were battling for the highest paycheck, Arnold was planting seeds that would pay him for decades. When people think of Terminator 2, Judgment Day, 1991, they remember the shotgun, the motorcycle, and hasta la vista, baby. But buried in plain sight is a detail most audiences missed. The clothes told the story before Arnold even spoke. In The Terminator, 1984, his wardrobe was pure menace. Black leather, punk-inspired spikes, and shades that screamed villain. Costume designer Bob Ringwood wanted the look to reflect a machine that was cold, intimidating, and purely destructive. Fast forward to Terminator 2. Arnold's Terminator returns, but this time as John Connor's protector. The wardrobe shifts just enough to signal the change. A more grounded biker jacket, practical jeans, and boots that suggested toughness without the theatrical bad guy. To a casual viewer, it was just a cool outfit, but in reality it was visual foreshadowing. The machine had evolved from killer to guardian. Even James Cameron himself admitted that every element of the costume was intentional. The clothing had to walk a fine line, still iconic, still intimidating, but recoded to make audiences feel a subtle sense of safety around Arnold's character. This tiny shift was crucial. Without it, the reveal of the Terminator as a protector might have felt cheap or unbelievable. Instead, audiences bought into it instantly because subconsciously, the clothes were already doing the storytelling. And here's the kicker. That same biker jacket silhouette has since become one of the most imitated looks in film and cosplay history. From Comic-Cons to Halloween, people aren't just dressing up as a Terminator, they're dressing up as the protector version, proof that the subtle costume choice reshaped how we remember the character forever. Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't just make blockbuster movies, he created cultural landmarks. And some of the most iconic lines in pop culture history weren't even designed to be memorable. Take Predator, 1987. The line, "Get to the chopper," was meant as a simple, urgent command. But thanks to Arnold's delivery, it transformed into a rallying cry. Today, it's one of the most quoted action lines ever, memed, remixed, and shouted in gyms, gaming lobbies, and comedy sketches worldwide. Or look at Commando 1985. Lines like, "Let off some steam, Bennett," weren't written as high art, but Arnold's deadpan delivery gave them a strange poetry. Fans turned them into internet gold decades later, proving that his charisma could elevate even the corniest one-liner into legend. But the real secret here? These lines endure because Arnold tapped into something larger than the movies themselves. His accent, timing, and sheer confidence made them instantly repeatable. They stuck in your head the way a great song lyric does. Scholars of pop culture even point out that Arnold's accidental memes helped shape early internet humor in the 2000s. Sites like YTMND and early YouTube were flooded with mashups of his dialogue, long before memes were mainstream. In other words, he wasn't just a movie star. He was one of the first unwitting meme icons. While special effects age and blockbuster trends come and go, Arnold's cultural footprint only grows. New generations who weren't even alive for his 80s and 90s heyday still quote him, proving that his voice and lines live forever in the collective memory. In 1994, Arnold Schwarzenegger took on one of his most surprising roles, Junior. Instead of fighting cyborgs, terrorists, or alien hunters, he was pregnant. At the time, critics and even fans were confused. Why would the ultimate action icon star in what looked like a bizarre comedy experiment? Here's the hidden layer. Arnold was stepping into a new stage of life. Off-screen, he was becoming a father and family man, and Junior gave him a way to explore vulnerability, humor, and responsibility in front of millions. Think about it. This was the same man who once said, "I'll be back," with machine-like conviction. Now he was navigating awkward doctor visits, cravings, and emotional meltdowns. It was absurd on paper, but audiences couldn't look away because it revealed something we hadn't seen before. The softer side of a man known for indestructibility. And the gamble paid off. While Junior wasn't the box office smash of Terminator 2, it showed Hollywood that Arnold wasn't a one-note performer. He could play with his own image, lean into comedy, and connect with audiences on a human level. Looking back, fans now see it as a reflection of real life. Arnold was preparing for fatherhood, and the movie became an unintentional metaphor. Even the toughest heroes have to learn how to nurture, sacrifice, and change. His legacy feels so multi-dimensional today. He wasn't afraid to risk ridicule in order to grow, not just as an actor, but as a person. In Terminator 2, Judgment Day, there's a scene where Arnold's T-800 holds an enormous minigun, mowing down police cars without killing a single officer. Fans always assumed it was just a rubber movie prop. Until decades later, behind-the-scenes footage revealed the shocking truth. The gun wasn't fake at all. It was a real, fully operational M134 minigun borrowed from a military supplier. Of course, it was modified to fire blanks for safety, but the sheer weight, the recoil, and the intimidating look were absolutely real. Arnold wasn't just acting. He was physically strong enough to carry and maneuver a weapon that, in reality, usually requires mounting on helicopters or vehicles. The detail went unnoticed by casual viewers, but action fans and weapon experts later confirmed it. What looked like movie magic was Arnold's raw power meeting real military hardware. It blurred the line between Hollywood fantasy and authentic grit. For many, this became the ultimate metaphor for Arnold's career. Where others faked it, he actually lived it. Whether in bodybuilding, stunts, or politics, he always went one step further than anyone expected. From hidden tricks to legendary roles, Arnold Schwarzenegger has proven that cinema's greatest secrets often live in plain sight. If you enjoyed uncovering these secrets, imagine how many more are still hidden in the movies you thought you knew by heart. Subscribe to Scene Hunt and join me on the next deep dive into Hollywood's most unforgettable stories.